These lakes hold a lot of stories, and all of them get better every time they're told. Because you've got 40-inch gators out there, giant Lakers, crappies, sunnies, and walleye. So many walleye. So get ready with the best from clam, otter, vexillar, hummingbird, garmin, 13 fishing, and many more. The Shields Ice Fishing Sale runs now through December 13th, in-store and online at shields.com. The ice is calling.
This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by North Dakota Tourism. Start planning your next hunting adventure in North Dakota at legendarynd.com. And by Onyx Hunt, the #1 GPS hunting map app. Onyx, know where you stand. Today we're going to try to help you become a better shot. Scott Carlson from Carlson's Choke Tubes is one of the best shots that we've ever seen in the field. He explains his methods for shotgunning success and offers pointers to help you drop more birds. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host. Brandon Morton is our producer. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I like to think of Thanksgiving as kind of a halfway point for hunting seasons in the northern part of bird country. And for states in the south, many seasons are still in the early stages. Whatever your season, our guest today should be able to help you make the most of the remainder of your hunting season and hopefully for years to come. Scott Carlson, thank you for joining our show today. Scott, do you have any hunting traditions around Thanksgiving?
Hunting. I mean, we always hunt. So, where we live in Kansas, we do a lot of upland hunting. And Travis, I appreciate being able to be on the show and want to also wish the listeners a happy Thanksgiving. But, we live in a rural area, much like where many of your listeners are at too. And it's just great to get out in the outdoors and enjoy it.
What part of Kansas are you in?
We're in the northwest corner of Kansas, so we're in a fairly sparsely populated county. Our county is 30 miles by 30 miles, and there's 3,000 souls in our county. So there's a lot of open spaces out here, about 3.5 hours from Denver.
You're like 2 weeks into your hunting season, or maybe a week and a half right now. How's it been for you?
Actually, we're known mainly in Kansas for our upland bird hunting and our deer hunting. And our upland bird hunting the last 2 or 3 years has really been on an upswing. The other great thing about Kansas is for non-residents coming to Kansas out in the western part of the state or the western half of the state, we've got a lot of what they call walk-in hunting areas. So you can buy a Kansas hunting license and access those areas without getting permission from a landowner, and the hunting license allows you to hunt those acres. For instance, in our county, I think there's almost 30,000 acres.
Wow. Are the bird numbers this year better than last?
In some areas, I would say in our area, they're better than they were last. I think maybe down in southwest part of the state, bird numbers may be down a little bit from last year just because of rainfall. But I think actually, by and large, the western half of the state, it's probably better than it has been. In our quail numbers, that's what's really surprising. Our quail numbers are up. So that's really good to see them on an upswing. So
If you had to hunt just one of those birds, pheasants or quail, which one would you choose?
I think I'd have to go with quail over pointing dogs. I mean, pheasants are a lot of fun to hunt. And you get plenty of exercise, but, you get days that are warm and those birds, they don't hold like they will, like a covey of quail will. And seeing those little, I call them rockets, take off in flight is quite a sight and a lot of fun to hunt, especially, like I said, over pointing dogs.
I would second that. So, Scott, if somebody that doesn't know you comes up and says, "What do you do for a living?" or "What is your job title?" what would you tell them?
Well, I tell people that we're a firearms accessory manufacturer. We manufacture choke tubes. And of course, you tell somebody that doesn't know what a shotgun is that you manufacture choke tubes and they start laughing at you. They have no idea what a choke tube is. But people like us that are in the industry and know shotguns, rifles, I mean, everybody knows what choke tubes are. And we sell a lot of other hunting accessories. I mean, we got shotgun barrels, magazine extensions, snap caps. So there's other items we have besides just choke tubes, but that's our primary business. We have over 2,400 different SKUs of choke tubes, if you can imagine that.
2,400?
Yes, sir.
Wow. I knew you made a lot of them, but that's a massive number. For probably 20 or close to 20 years now that we've been in the field filming pheasant hunting or upland bird hunting television shows. And anytime when I ask our cameraman this question, who's the best shot they've ever seen? Unanimously, everybody says Scott Carlson. So that's why I want to have you on the show today so that we can all be more like you and a little bit less like our friend Ron Shera. How? Sorry, go ahead.
Ron's got the advantage of the editor, so he can get edited to look good. So
absolutely. And I think he may have taken a couple of your shots and put his, side view of him pulling the trigger and then your bird falling down to make him look like he might have actually hit something on one of the hunts. But
yeah, he did that with a lot of people.
Yep. Well, and it's worked for him. 25 years in television, and nobody knows the truth about his shot. If you were to actually rate Ron on his shooting skills, 1 to 10, where does he fall?
Well, Ron's actually a pretty good shot. So I'd probably rate him at an 8. So, I mean, that's where I'd put him. I'm not going to go any lower than that.
That's generous of you. You're a better friend to him than I am. I would put him at a 6. A lot of curse words following some of the shots. I mean, for years I would go through the footage and help put his stories together. And no, I give him a hard time, but that's only because I respect him and we are good friends. And no, he's had the retina issue in his eye, which has challenged his shooting over the last 6 or 7 years. And there are some days where he comes back from the field and he sits down next to me and they're at my desk and he'll say, I don't know if I'm going to go back out there again. And I say, Ron, yes, you are. You are going back out there. This is what you love to do. Keep shooting. You have to go back out. But he gets hard on himself sometimes when he misses. I think we all probably do. I know we certainly don't like to wound a bird. Fortunately, we're in fields with great dogs. And so the recovery rate is really high when you're hunting with good dogs as well, to kind of make you a better hunter sometimes. But yeah. I guess what I'm getting to at the end of the day, I would think we all want to be better shotgunners. And, when we pull the trigger, we want to make sure that our birds drop. So, Scott, quick history here. How long have you been hunting and shooting shotguns?
So my dad owned a gun shop. He's a veterinarian, and then he had a vet practice in one half of his building, and he had a gun shop in the other half, kind of a odd combination. But anyway, that's the way I grew up in northeast Nebraska, up near Yankton, South Dakota on the Missouri River. And so I grew up around guns. In high school, he had taught me to repair guns. So I went to gunsmithing school, and being raised in that part of the country, I did waterfowl and goose hunting and upland bird hunting. And then when I got done with gunsmithing school and I came to work for a gunsmith here in Atwood, Kansas, I got into a lot more upland bird hunting and finally just had an interest in chokes and shotguns and, trying to get chokes to pattern better. So I guess I was able to put my technical gunsmithing stuff that I had learned, and I was able to, put it into chokes and then the sales side of it, I just had a knack for that and the marketing side. So that's kind of a little bit of a background. We've been manufacturing chokes now for, I think we're going on 35 years this next year.
So did you find that when you went to school that really taught you the most, or was it just spending time taking guns apart and dissecting them and crafting and working on them? Did you learn more hands-on, or was it taught?
They teach you the basics, but it's hands-on. I learned so much fitting kids, gals, guys to shotguns. You got to put it into use, and that's how you learn. Out here where we're at, back when I started, we drew people from around 100-mile radius, and people laugh at that and think that can't be true, but it is. I mean, there just weren't a lot of gunsmiths out here, so I had the opportunity to work with a lot of people, fit a lot of guns to people, just learned a lot about shotgunning itself just by practical use and working on guns and fitting people to guns. So that's what piqued my interest in the chokes and just trying to get better performance out of them.
Do you remember when you made your first choke tube and why you made it?
Yeah, that would have been back in probably 85 or 86, and then made some chokes actually in 87. And up in the part of the world where you live, I had never ever heard of a chain store, Fleet Farm. And anyway, they were one of our first customers, and probably a lot of the reason for our success. Had the opportunity to sell to a chain store that, could move our product, and that was a big help to us. And then, of course, we just kept developing chokes from there. And then over the years, the last 35 years, there's been more people like us manufacturing choke tubes too. So, but we can get into that later. But I tell people any aftermarket choke you can buy is better than a factory choke tube, because most people don't know this, but none of the manufacturers, be it Remington, Winchester, Browning, or any of the imports from Turkey or Italy, none of those manufacturers actually manufacture their choke tubes. They source them all out, and they source them out of lower grade material to keep the cost of their guns down. So, if they're providing 3 or 5 chokes with a gun and they cost them $20 a piece, that adds a lot of retail value to the gun at the end of the day. Whereas if they can get their chokes for around $5 a piece, they can keep the price of those guns down and compete against their competition better. So aftermarket companies generally use a higher grade of stainless steel, and they work better in tighter constrictions with steel shot, which is really important nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys had big effects to your business from COVID, positive or negative?
Yeah, I guess if I don't know what's positive about COVID, the nothing, but
Right.
I guess the positive part for the firearms industry is it's getting more people out in the woods hunting. It's getting more people to the trap ranges and the sporting clays ranges shooting. And so that's generating more sales. Of course, for us, as adverse effects is, we've got a workforce here, and our workforce has been affected by COVID. We've had people out with COVID. We've had people pass away from COVID. We've had people, that have to be tested for COVID. So, for manufacturing product and trying to get stuff out the door, it's not been a lot of weeks where we have a full crew in here because of COVID. But anyway, just not a good deal in the big picture. Yeah, granted, it's created some more sales. If there's anything good about it, it's just getting more people are staying at home, and more people are doing things closer to where they live. So anyway, that's probably the only positive of it I can see.
Right. I'm sorry that you've been hit by it down there and had deaths too. I mean, it's been tough. It's been tough on everybody, no doubt about it. Has your supply chain for materials been affected at all?
Some stuff, our material, because we order all of our material ourselves and it's made to our specs as far as our steel. And chokes, by the way, are made out of solid bar stock. They're not made out of tubing. But that supply chain really has not been affected. So that's been a good thing. We've had some freight issues and some of those type issues, but like everybody else, any other company. But luckily in our industry, we haven't been heavily impacted, I guess. I mean, people are buying this stuff so they can get out of doors.
Yeah. So you said you have 2,400 choke tube SKUs. Um, you guys test every single one of them, right? What does that process look like?
Well, we have an electronic patterning machine, so it's something that not very many companies. I only know of one other ammunition manufacturer that has one. So it allows us to get data about every 30 seconds when we pull the trigger on a shotgun. We get data that shows us the density of the pattern, how many pellets. It just gives us all the information that we used to have to count. So before, when we'd go out and say we'd shoot, say we'd shoot 20 targets. Those 20 targets may take us 2 or 3 hours to analyze, actually more than that, depending on how in depth we were going. Now we can go out and shoot those same 20 targets in well less than an hour and have accurate data in less than an hour. And I mean, we know all the answers. So when an ammunition company comes out with a new load, be it like a Prairie Storm load or
Uh-huh.
Winchester or Rooster load, anytime that new ammunition comes out, we can get it right on our machine with different chokes and figure out exactly how the stuff patterns with the chokes that we manufacture. So when customers call in with questions, we can answer them immediately.
Do you get any customers that say that know how extensive your testing protocols are with the shots, but do they ask you, hey, what's the best shot? What's the best upland load that you can fire through a shotgun?
Oh yeah, we get those type of questions, and yeah, we can tell you what choke and what load and the density of the patterns. But in the last 10 or 15 years, there's a lot of really terrific loads out there that have come out, be it Prairie Storm, Rooster, Black Cloud, some of these new turkey loads with the TSS and the bismuth
Mm-hmm.
load. I mean, there's just been some tremendous new ammunition out there that really helps all of us. So, and it really works good with choke tubes. So you can get some great patterns out there.
Yeah, because oh gosh, I don't know if it's been 10 years, but it's been close to that. I switched over to Prairie Storm loads, and I feel like I've got 10 to 15 yards further on my shot that I'm comfortable taking a bird, and it'll stone cold them at distances that I probably would have passed on before. It just adds that much more knockdown power at further distances. I mean, can you say which load? Let's say you're not working, you're just going hunting with your family. What box do you pick up?
Well, Prairie Storm would be one of them. And the reason Prairie Storm does a better job than a regular lead pellet is because of what Federal did with a flight stopper pellet. And exactly what you said is knockdown. So
Mm-hmm.
old school thinking, when I came up pheasant hunting, I was shooting number 4 lead. Might have been a nitro magnum. I tried or a copper plated Winchester or a Federal copper plated. But nowadays, with that Prairie Storm load, a 6 has got the knockdown of a 4. So you could kick your payload up 20 or 30%, shoot 6s, and get the knockdown of a 4 because of those flight stopper pellets with what I call those Saturn rings around them. And when they hit, they give you additional knockdown. And it's not a gimmick or a sales pitch. It's something that
Mm-hmm.
actually works and does what they say it does. I mean, as advertised. And anyway, it's just a great load. And you're right. You can put birds down out there at distances that before they were always wounded. Anymore, you go over and dogs don't have a hard time finding them.
Right. Have you ever paced off or, come up with a distance where you say this is the magic number? Anything beyond this you should not shoot?
Well, and that goes back to, I think, what we're going to talk about is making you a better shot, is patterning your shotgun. And people don't do it. It's easy to do. And I tell people, you go out and you put a scope on your deer rifle and you go out and you put it on paper and you shoot a group. Shotguns, guys go buy them, they screw a choke in them and they go hunt. Well, it's just as important as sighting in your rifle. And once you do it, you will believe me. And once you do it, you'll be a better shot because number one, you're going to know where your gun shoots. And more importantly, to answer your question, you're going to know how far that load that you bought puts a good pattern out to. So if you pattern it at 40 yards and 50 yards, you're going to see exactly where your gun shoots, where your point of aim is, and what the density of your pattern is with whatever choke you're going to use. And once you do that, it's like I tell guys, when you go out with your rifle and you've got 4 different brands of ammo, they're all 100-grain bullets, and you put them on paper, one of them boxes of ammo is going to shoot a better group than the other 3, and that's the one you're going to shoot from that day forward. You'll still have to go out and sight your rifle in, but you're going to use that ammo. A shotgun's a little different. I still tell guys to take 4 or 5 boxes of upland loads or steel shot loads that they think they might want to use when they hunt. But once you have your shotgun sighted in and you know where it shoots, it's always going to shoot that same spot. Now, it's going to shoot different with those 4 different types of ammo as far as the density of the pattern. And one of those you're going to pick because you're going to look at that pattern and go, that ammunition and this choke and this gun is better than those other 3. And that's the reason that patterning your gun is so important. Even us old guys, and I know guys older than me that have never patterned a shotgun, if you'll do it, I guarantee you'll be a better shot in the field and probably outshoot most of the people you're with.
When you say different boxes of ammunition, let's just say number 5s or number 6s, what difference will you see if you're standing at, let's say, 40 yards and you shoot 4 different targets from the same distance and a different shot in each one? What is the range of difference you might find?
Well, it can be a lot, so if you took those 4 loads and you shoot them through a full choke at 40 yards, all 4 of those loads are going to shoot differently as far as the density of the pattern. And you're going to see, just like you do with your rifle ammo, you'll get some that'll shoot a 1/2-inch group at 100 yards, and then you may shoot a 100-grain bullet that shoots a 2-inch group at 100 yards. And it's the same way with the shotgun. Some of that ammo, and I'm not going to throw out names or brands or anything else, but some of it is definitely going to pattern denser than other ammunition is. And that's what you really need to do. Once you do it and you figure out, so if you're going to go pheasant hunting and you want to shoot 6s, I would get a box of Federal, I'd get a box of Winchester or a couple other brands that you like, and take all 4 of them out. And you're hunting wild birds, so more than likely your shots are going to start off maybe at 30 to 40 yards. And so pattern your gun at 40 yards with probably a full choke, because 40 yards probably needs that full choke, and depending on the load, and shoot those 4 boxes of ammo with that choke, full choke at 40 yards, and one of those boxes will out pattern or put a denser pattern at 40 yards than the other 3 will. And that's the importance of patterning. I can't tell you how much difference there'll be because it varies on the amount of shot that's in the load, but don't just go out and pattern one box. You can do that, but there may be other boxes that are better, and from that time forward, that's what you're going to buy.
Well, the guys might be listening saying, yeah, but the box isn't flying through the air. The box is sitting still. My target, isn't flying through the air when I'm patterning it. How does that make me a better shot at something that's flying through the air?
Okay, so here's how it makes you a better shot. So it's just like putting a scope on your deer rifle and going deer hunting. Where's it going to shoot? You don't know. Shotgun's kind of the same way. I would say 80%, and we probably have here in house, we probably have 40 different shotguns that we pattern with chokes. And out of those 40 guns, I'll bet 80% of them will not shoot exact point of aim at 40 yards. And we've got a lot of them that shoot 6 inches high at 40 yards. You guys out there shooting Benellis, most of your Benellis will shoot high. That's the way Benelli designed the gun. So you see your target on top of the sight. You don't cover your target. But if you don't know that, and you're shooting at a pheasant at 40 yards and your gun shoots 6 inches high and you don't know it, you're either going to wound or shoot over the top of the bird because the gun's shooting high. And by putting it on paper, say at 40 yards, and when you put it on paper, I tell guys to use a 30-inch by 30-inch or a 40-inch by 40-inch piece of paper so that you can catch all those pellets and you can find your center mass of your pattern in relationship to the dot that you aimed at 40 yards and figure out how high, low, left, or right your shotgun shoots. And that's where your gun shoots. I mean, these manufacturers, not all their guns shoot point of aim, and they just don't. Just like putting a scope on a gun doesn't mean that it's going to shoot dead on at 100 yards. So, but once you pattern it and you know where the center mass is and you know it shoots 6 inches high, it will shoot 6 inches high with turkey loads, with steel shot loads, with upland loads, and you can change the density of your pattern with the choke tube. So if you want something more open, you go with an IC. If you want something tighter, of course, you go with a full or a modified choke. And putting these different loads on paper and figuring out where your gun shoots, I guarantee you'll make you a better shot by doing it.
Well, I want to ask you about specific choke tubes that you use in the field and more shotgunning tips. But first, our friends in North Dakota want to remind everyone that their bird numbers are up this year, which will give you plenty of chances to test your shotgunning skills. If you don't trust them or you don't trust me, just ask anybody that you know that has hunted birds in North Dakota this season. I have not heard a single bad bird hunting report from North Dakota this year, and I'm guessing that you probably haven't or won't either. According to North Dakota's annual roadside counts this year, their pheasants observed per 100 miles were up 38%. Sharptails were up 54%, and Hungarian partridge were up 45%. From my personal experience in North Dakota, I would say those numbers are a little bit low because there were so many birds that I'm going to say the numbers were higher. Plus, with an estimated 4 million breeding ducks up 18% this year, North Dakota's central region is prime habitat for both hunting waterfowl and upland birds. Plus, North Dakota has more than 700,000 acres of private land open to public walk-in hunting. For the latest plots guide, visit the North Dakota Game and Fish Department or legendarynd.com. I use Onyx maps just like I use my Lowrance graph in my boat. I have the Onyx app open constantly while I'm on the road in search of publicly accessible places to hunt. Just like my sonar reveals the fish while I'm on the water, the Onyx maps reveal places that I can legally hunt and gives me aerial views to show places where the birds are likely holding. It's become the most valuable hunting tool in my arsenal because I hunt all over the country and I hunt a lot of public lands that I've never walked before. Onyx maps give me peace of mind knowing that I'm always standing on public ground or land that I have permission to be on, and I can check my location while I'm walking in the field. I also have an Onyx chip in my Garmin Alpha GPS dog tracking system, so I can watch where I'm walking and where my dog is running while we're both in the field. Download the Onyx app right onto your smartphone and take it everywhere with you in the field. Onyx Maps, the best tool for hunters that want to know where they stand. Scott, when you walk into the field to hunt pheasants, what shotgun do you take with you? Is it a 12 gauge, a 20 gauge, or is it something else?
Well, when I'm hunting wild pheasants, it's a 12 gauge. I just think, birds get up not a long ways, but, a lot of times if the weather's warm, birds run and they get up a distance. So I primarily hunt with a 12 gauge and most of the time with an over-under because I like the fact that you can put an open choke in the bottom. And so if it's a nice day out, say it's 45 or 50 degrees and those birds aren't going to be holding, I may run a modified choke in the bottom barrel, which is my first shot, and I run a full choke in my top barrel or reach out there on my second shot because it's always going to be farther than your first one. The other thing I like about the over-under hunting upland birds is when you're on private property or even in a public hunting unit or a walk-in hunting unit like we have here in Kansas with a semi-auto, nobody ever picks up their shells. So with an over-under, even though you only have 2 shots instead of 5, at least you can catch all your shells and you don't leave nothing behind. So
yeah, it's amazing to me how many shells I walk back with in my back pouch at the end of the day hunting on public land. And I do get it because there's a lot of times where, you take a shot or you might be moving quick and, the bird, you're trying to stay on the bird and in the heat of the moment, you might forget it. Even if you go back, you might not be able to find it. But yeah, I use an over-under most of the time now. And just for that reason, no matter if I'm moving or trying to stay on the bird, when I pop the barrel open, I grab the shells, put them in my pouch, grab 2 new ones, and stuff them right in. Scott, how many shots do you think you take in a normal year? Not hunting, but just at the range or when you're working? I have to imagine it's thousands, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, there's from ammunition manufacturers, there's been times that we had to fire 8,000 rounds of ammunition. So I couldn't venture to guess how many rounds a year, and it varies. Some years more than others, but we shoot a lot of ammunition. But the thing is, with the ammunition that we're shooting, most of it's done out off of a rest, a lead sled. And that's the way I recommend guys sight their rifles in too, or shotguns in, when they're doing this pattern testing, is with a lead sled or something similar off of a bench. A lot of guys that I talk to, they pattern offhand, and I say, why do you do that? And they say, well, because that's the way I shoot in the field. And I say, well, how do you pattern your rifle? Well, off a bench. I said, well, sometimes you shoot a rifle offhand in the field. Why don't you do it that way? Well, they would never do that. And then a shotgun trigger pull is heavier than a rifle trigger pull in most cases, so it's harder to hold on target. So if you have your shotgun in just a simple vise or a lead sled, where when you pull that trigger, you can hold it on that dot, then you can determine where your gun shoots. So if that's where your gun shoots, it doesn't matter if you're out in the field walking and you miss a bird, you knew where your gun was shooting with the load and the choke, and you did something wrong. Whereas if you don't do that, you start second guessing yourself. Is something wrong with the ammo? Am I not using the right choke? Does the gun not shoot on? You go out and pattern a gun and it answers all your questions. It makes you a better shot in most cases.
I think I know the answer to this, but what is the biggest mistake you see hunters make in the field when it comes to, their shot?
Probably taking it too quick in a lot of cases. Of course, that depends too on what you're hunting. But again, I'm going back to patterning. If you know how your equipment does, you don't have to take a quick first shot. If you know how your gun shoots, you're probably better off, waiting a second and getting a good shot. And the other mistake I see people make, shooting shells that are high velocity shells or 3.5-inch magnums. People don't think about 1,600, 1,700 feet per second loads, how much the recoil is and how long it takes to recover from the shot when you pull the trigger. So a lot of times that gets you in more trouble than if you just used a regular 1,300 or 1,400 foot per second load, because you can recover quickly from each shot and make a good second shot. That's not so easy with 3.5-inch magnums or 1,700 feet per second ammunition. It's got such recoil that recovering to the second shot is tough. And not only that, that type of ammunition is hard on guns on a lot of them.
So a little bit ago, we said, if you're shooting, you're patterning your gun at 40 yards, what distance does the shot start to drop out there in the field? So like if it's on, if you know exactly where it is at 40 yards, at what point is it falling?
It starts dropping off probably more dramatically, I would say, at 60 yards.
Okay.
And I tell people, if you think that you're going to shoot at, a goose or a duck or a pheasant at 60 yards, I recommend you take your gun out, and when you're done patterning at 40 and figure out what ammunition shoots best with your chokes and the ammunition you're going to use, shoot it at 60 yards. It's either going to do one or two things for you. It's going to show you that taking a 60-yard shot is not very ethical with the ammunition you're shooting, because there's not very many pellets around the dot you aimed at, or it's going to show you it's patterning pretty well and you could take a shot at that distance. So, that's the other thing. If you ask any hunter that's out in the field, just ask them, how's your gun shoot at 40 yards? I'll bet you 90% of them can't answer the question. And if you ask them how your gun shoots at 50 or 60 yards, I doubt any of them will answer the question. But yet they'll take the shot. So would you take a shot at a deer at 600 yards and you know you can shoot to 200. So if you go out and pattern your gun and you know what it's doing at those distances, it'll make you a lot better shot, or it'll make you not take the shot and work on those closer shots.
So, if you, I mean, I would guess most hunters, Scott, you'd probably agree with this. Most hunters probably do not change their choke tube out from opening day to the last day of the season, and they may not change it for years. If somebody listening right now is like, I just want to put one choke tube in my gun and leave it there, is it modified? Is it a improved modified if you had to pick just one all around choke tube for upland birds?
Well, that's somewhat of a tough question, but first a little bit on maintenance. So about as far as just leaving a choke in a gun, you always want to put grease on the threads. I recommend taking chokes out after every hunt and wiping them down, re-greasing them and putting them in, because the barrel, between the barrel wall and the choke wall, when you shoot your gun and it's cold, it condensates and it puts out water. And that's what causes rust, and that's what causes chokes to stick in a barrel. So I tell guys to take the chokes out and lube them. You know, a modified choke's a good choke out to about 40 yards, maybe 45 yards. So that's a good choice. But, you know, if you're hunting on a preserve, or maybe you're hunting in South Dakota where they're releasing birds, in a scenario like that, I might want to run a skeet or an improved cylinder choke, because more than likely you're never going to take a shot past 35 yards, and using a modified choke or something tighter can really tear birds up when you're hunting that situation. Or if you're hunting quail, for instance, you know, if you're going to get into some quail, or, you know, those shots are 20, 25 yards, and probably a skeet or cylinder choke is better suited for that. But, you know, for pheasants, as you alluded to, I would say a modified for wild birds is probably a good all-around choice. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Going back to when the choke gets rusted in, I've seen it happen before. Some of my friends have, you know, and I mentioned, you know, what do you got in there? And they said, I don't know, it's rusted and I can't take it out anyway. Is there a way to get that out?
If you've got a wrench and it won't take it out, you about need to take it to a gunsmith so you don't ruin your barrel. You know, some of these barrels cost $500 or $600. Another thing too, you know, with an extended choke, you generally get a lot denser patterns out of them because they have longer parallel sections. But not only do they give you better patterns, they've got some other advantages people don't think about either. Number one, if a choke gets lodged in the barrel, now you've got something that's extended outside of the barrel that you can get a hold of it and potentially get it out. The other thing it does is it protects the end of the muzzle. So if you've got your gun inside a vehicle with the muzzle down riding, you know, it protects it. The other nice thing about extended tubes is they're laser etched on the end. So rather than having to look in the end of the barrel with a flush mount choke to figure out what you've got in there, which I don't recommend, you can actually look on the outside of the choke and it'll tell you if it's an improved cylinder, a modified, or a full. So there's other advantages to extended chokes over flush mount tubes that I highly recommend. It'll help your patterns, and I think you'll have a lot better success in the field with extended tubes.
How often do you change your choke tubes throughout the season? Do you I suppose it depends on the birds you're hunting, right? But do you change it from early season, anticipating closer birds in range, and later on in the season?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And we manufacture a lot of 2-packs and 3-packs. So like when I go duck or goose hunting, and we don't have timber around here where we hunt them, so I won't ever need a close range, but I always take a mid-range and long-range choke with me, because I never know, you know, if we get out there and it's a 50-degree day and the birds, my first shot's at 35, I'm going to have my long-range tube in there. If we've got them coming into decoys, I can run my mid-range tube. But, you know, I'm not the guy that leaves a choke in for the year. I try to give myself all the advantage I can, and I try to have the right choke in the gun for the distance I'm going to be shooting, and which helps me in the field, because if I've got a duck or a goose out there at 40 yards or 50 yards and I've got a mid-range tube in, I've got a lot better chance of wounding the bird or missing the bird than I do if I have a long range tube in that's got a tighter pattern and going to put a better shot on the bird and allow you to take the bird. So I generally travel with 2 or 3 chokes, depending on the day that I'm hunting.
I shoot an early season and a late season choke tube in my Benelli. It's made for that gun, for Benelli guns and for Prairie Storm ammunition. If I were to put that choke tube in a different gun, well, I don't know if it would actually go in there, but let's just say I wanted to shoot different shells out of that gun. What's the potential damage that could happen?
So in other words, if you had a Prairie Storm tube and you shot other ammo in it?
Yeah.
Okay, so good question. So we make black cloud chokes, we make blindside chokes, we make a Prairie Storm choke, a rooster choke. All these chokes, you can shoot other ammunition in them, and it's not going to damage. I mean, you don't have to worry about the choke being damaged. That's with our chokes because of the material they're made out of. We try to market these chokes so that if you buy a box of Prairie Storm ammo and you buy a Prairie Storm choke, it's going to throw a good pattern. The same way with Black Cloud, the same way with our rooster choke. So it helps the consumer that doesn't understand chokes, if they've got that ammunition and they're going to use it, that choke will work with that ammunition. That choke will also work with other ammunition and not cause harm to the choke.
Does it change the pattern though on the other kind of ammunition?
It can, just like I said earlier in the conversation, the importance of pattern in your shotgun is you could take 4 different boxes of number 6s out and shoot them through a full choke at 40 yards. And I guarantee you're going to get 4 different patterns if you keep them and put them side by side and look at them. One of the 4 is going to look better than the other 3. So yes, other ammunition will shoot differently. And that's why you pattern a load or take them out and shoot them. Hey, once you figure out your load and you patterned it, it's going to be the same 5 years from now. So it's not something you got to go do all the time. You got to go out and do it once or twice for the type of ammunition or hunting that you're going to do.
What are your favorite shot sizes for pheasant and your favorite shot size for quail?
Oh, good question. So quail's not too tough. I mean, really 7.5s or 8s, and you don't need any really special ammunition or special pellet size or anything else because you're shooting at such close distances. Pheasants, I'm old school, and I started shooting 4s because, I wanted the knockdown, and when you're hunting wild birds, they just get up at distance. So that's what I always use. But like we talked earlier, these new loads like Prairie Storm and Rooster, I go now for payload because I can shoot a 6 and get the knockdown of a 4 and kick my payload way up. And that's for pheasants, wild birds, I run 6s. And if I'm hunting preserves or something like that, I'll probably run 7.5s and run a light load, like a target load or a little more, maybe an 1.125 or 1.25 load. Whereas if I'm hunting wild birds, I'm probably shooting an 1 3/8 load at least.
So I hunt a mixture of different public lands in different, states, and sometimes you have to switch to non-toxic to stay legal. Some people just swear I'm only shooting non-toxic. What do you see the knockdown difference in a Prairie Storm lead versus a Prairie Storm steel load, or just any non-toxic loads? I mean, if you're shooting a 6 on average with a lead load and you have to go non-toxic, what do you drop down? Do you drop down in size, or do you keep it at a 6 shot?
I'd probably, if I'm hunting on those public areas, because those birds are probably pretty wily, I'm probably going to run a 4 in steel. But if I'm hunting a public area and I'm passionate about hunting, and all the money I spend on dogs and travel and everything else, guns, equipment, the last thing I'm worried about is my shotgun shells. So I'm probably going to be shooting a tungsten load or a bismuth load that's a non-tox with more knockdown like lead. That way I don't have to worry about crippling birds or not getting the payload I could get because I can't shoot lead. Now I'm shooting steel. I would go to a non-tox and pay a little bit more for your ammunition and get a lot better results in the field for sure.
last question here. This might be the most difficult one. What are you most looking forward to for the rest of this hunting season?
COVID to be over.
Right. Oh man.
Just like every hunting season, you just enjoy the outdoors, being out there hunting, and we're lucky where we live in a rural area where, I can go 5 minutes from where I'm sitting right now or less, and I can be in a field hunting if I want to. So, and I like it all. It doesn't matter if it's waterfowl or upland bird hunting. We've got great dove hunting out here. That's really a lot of fun. And, so anytime you can be out hunting, whether it be with a rifle or a shotgun, it's a good thing. And I'm glad to see that there's more people getting out and doing it since we've had these issues with COVID.
I agree with you on all that. Well, we appreciate you taking the time today. You're a wealth of knowledge. Hopefully, listeners gain some information that will help them if they have more questions. I know you guys are a wealth of a great resource for people to reach out to. Where do they go to ask any additional questions relating to their shotguns and choke tubes and shots that they should be shooting out of them?
Well, probably the best place to go is to our website. And that's pretty simple. It's just choketube.com. So you can go to choketube.com. You can get our phone number. We've got 5 or 6 techs here that answer questions all day long. And when you call us, you're going to get a human being on the phone. And our website will show you a lot of different chokes. Or if you're uncertain about what fits your gun, which is kind of confusing because all the manufacturers, or many of them, have 4 different choke systems to fit their different firearms. We have a great interchange chart on our website that you can view and figure out what your shotgun takes.
Perfect. We appreciate you taking the time today. I'll tell Ron that you scored him an 8 out of 10. He'll be so excited to hear that. He would probably put himself at a 5 too, just like I put him.
Yeah, exactly. No, Ron's a great guy, and one of the reasons that we've been part of the show is because of the great job you guys do and the support you guys give Pheasants Forever and a lot of the other organizations. So thanks for what you guys do.
Well, we appreciate that. We're just like you. We're just trying to do our best. So we appreciate your partnership and helping us to be better shots in the field too. It means a lot to us. So Scott, thank you very much. I would love to have you on the show again. I'm pretty sure we're going to have listeners send me questions or, have feedback. So I always take notes, and then, if we can get you on again, ask more in-depth questions, I'm sure that it'll benefit everybody in the field. So take care, Scott. Stay healthy, and I hope your team, we're moving forward, right?
Absolutely, Travis. Hey, thanks for everything, for the questions, and everybody out there, get out there and pattern your shotguns.
There it is. Once again, thank you to North Dakota Tourism for helping us to make this show possible. To beg your limit this fall in North Dakota, visit legendarynd.com. And don't forget to download the Onyx map to help plan your hunting adventures and find those pieces of property that are open to the public and full of wild birds. Current episodes of The Flush are airing right now on the Outdoor Channel. Catch the action every week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Flush Podcast.
These lakes hold a lot of stories, and all of them get better every time they're told. Because you've got 40-inch gators out there, giant Lakers, crappie, sunnies, and walleye. So many walleye. So get ready with the best from clam, otter, vexillar, hummingbird, garmin, 13 fishing, and many more. The Shields Ice Fishing Sale runs now through December 13th, in-store and online at shields.com. The ice is calling.